I'm here joined by Hall of Fame announcer Jim Lampley. Thank you so much for your time. I really truly appreciate it.
My privilege, Joel.
This is the second time I'm interviewing you. I know you don't remember the first time, but I just want to say it was an honor then and it's still an honor now. This is the first time we do it in person, so I'm very excited for this. I'm very much looking forward to the interview.
Excited to be with you. I
Yeah.
don't remember yesterday's interviews, so please don't feel any sensitivity
N-
about whatever it is you think I have forgotten. But,
No, no, no. We're good. We're
all
good.
right, good. Thank you.
So you just recently wrote a book, It Happened, named after your famous quote, which we'll get to. But what made you write a book this stage of your life?
Well, I've always had a sense from a long time ago that my life was unusual, beginning with the fact that my father died when I was 5 years old. My mother had to um, engage in a lot of courageous and self sustaining acts to keep our lives together. And she went out of her way from early on to immerse me in sports events. And in fact, the very first event that she ever insisted that I watch and learn something from was when I was 6 years old, and she took me down a hallway at a neighbor's house and put me in front of a small television set on a TV dinner tray and said, "Sit right here. You're going to watch Sugar Ray Robinson versus Bobo Olson for the middleweight championship on Gillette Friday Night Fights. You're going to do this because if your father was still alive, he had died the year before. This is what you would be doing with him. And by the way, pay special attention to Sugar Ray Robinson. He's my favorite fighter because he dances when he fights." Now, I was not old enough at that moment to understand the full import of a woman, a now 36-year-old double widow from an all Irish family in Memphis, Tennessee, who was openly willing to say that her favorite fighter was a black man
Mm.
who had a particular style in the ring. Ultimately, I would learn that that was unusual, and I would learn a lot of other things from her about race, ethnicity, etc., that helped me to become a successful sports reporter. But the bottom line is, from early on, not only have I known that my life was a somewhat unusual story, but I
Mhm.
also was the product of my mother and my father's mother, my paternal grandmother, who competed for my attention by telling me stories. They were both inveterate,
Mm.
nonstop storytellers. I would spend all summer in Hendersonville, North Carolina, in my grandmother's kitchen, watching her cook pound cakes for everybody in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Then I would go home to Miami for 9 months of the school year in Miami, and I would listen to my mother tell her stories, and I would also watch the Gillette Friday Night Fights.
And their storytelling somewhat affected you, and you now to some
Well,
degree that
there's no question. I
yeah.
mean, my wife, in the wake of the publication of the book, my wife has said to me, "How is it that you go down one avenue, make a right turn, go back to another neighborhood, somehow find some commonality in the story, and then come back out on the other side? What gives that to you?" I said, "My mother and my grandmother. That was the way they both told stories. So
That-
it's natural for me to think in narrative terms that way." But yeah, I had an unusual life. I went through life as a storyteller, telling stories on sports
Mhm.
television eventually. I went through all of that. I reached a point at which I said, okay, this is over with. I went to the place where I'd gone to University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, taught for 5 semesters, got tired of that. What's next?
Uh,
Write a book. And that's how I came to the prospect of writing my autobiography.
Okay, all right. Well, you had mentioned your mother was double widowed, and I kind of want to touch on that if that's okay. Man, uh, that your mom is a strong woman to have survived that and raised, you know, was it two young boys, you and your brother? And did she ever all the stories she told you? She ever told you the stories about losing her first husband, excuse me, and then
Well, I knew the
losing the
stories.
second one, and
I knew
what?
from my family what all of the narrative terms of that were.
Mhm.
And my mother had her first open heart surgery in 1953. She was in the hospital at New York Hospital in 1953, all the way up here from Hendersonville, North Carolina, because at that time you couldn't get open heart surgery in Hendersonville, North Carolina. You had to come to New York. So she was here for her first open heart surgery in 1953. The hospital allowed my father to be checked into the room with her before her surgery so that he could help comfort her in preparation. And they gave him a physical and came into the room the night before my mother's surgery and said, "We have a very serious discussion to have because we're not sure what you want to do. But you, Jim Lampley, have cancer. And the cancer that you have is pernicious enough and advanced enough that your life is in doubt. And the surgery that she's about to have is new enough and unexplored enough that her life is in doubt. So, what do you want to do?" And they decided to go forward with her surgery. And she survived it. Many years later, died after her fourth open heart surgery. My
Wow.
father died of cancer in 1954. So by the time my mother was 35 years old, she had survived her first open heart surgery. She had lost two husbands. Her first husband, who was a bomber squadron wingmate to my father in the Air Force in World War II, died when the transport plane bringing him back from Saipan
Mhm.
crashed into a mountain in western North Carolina, one county over from where my father lived. And my
Mm.
father had come back earlier from Saipan because he was of a lower rank.
Mm.
My mother's first husband, Frederick, he was a full bird colonel, a lieutenant or a colonel, full colonel at that time, and that he had to stay longer on Saipan for the cleanup. The legend in my family is that my father walked into his mother's kitchen around the time of Christmas 1945, and my grandmother said, "Jim, there's a radio report of a transport plane crashing in Brevard, and everybody is lost." And my father supposedly said at that moment, "That's Fred Trickey's plane." The truth is, he couldn't possibly have known exactly on what transport plane his buddy was coming back. That's my grandmother making up a detail to make the story even better.
Mm.
So the story my grandmother told was that my father knew it was Fred Trickey's plane. What we
Okay.
do know is true is that a few days later, he took a uniform and some medals of his own to Tampa, to McDill Field in Tampa, so that my mother would have something to bury.
Did
And
he did your father at the time know your mother?
they were good friends
Okay.
because they had both been on um, the air base at McDill Field in Tampa and Pratt, Kansas, where the training for B-29s took place. They knew each other well.
Okay.
So my father took a uniform, some medals to Tampa from my mother to bury. They began to see each other, got married in 1948. I was born in 1949. My
Okay.
mother had her first open heart surgery in 1953. Father died in 1954. So by the time my mother's 35, she has seen two husbands die. She has one son from each of the two husbands. She has not previously worked for a living at that point.
Okay.
And now she has to figure out what to do. She wound up leaving Hendersonville, North Carolina, going to Miami to learn how to sell life insurance. I spent all of my adolescence and teenage years in Miami, and that's where I saw my first boxing match.